ready? All right. Let's call the May 7th meeting of the Joint Zoning Council to order. First item is the approval of the minutes of February the 5th. So there were both the reorganization meeting and the normal monthly meeting.
Make a motion to approve.
Tom?
Second.
Ed? Any discussion? All right, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Also, just to confirm, we canceled our meeting for March the 5th and April the 2nd, so that'll show up on the website as such. Okay. Treasurer's report, everybody got a copy? So Kathleen's not here tonight. She had a personal issue to deal with. Opening balance of $3,738. There were deposits of $22,580 for total cash balance of $26,318.26. The total of $44,389 in checks cashed, which leaves a balance of $22,017.37 in the treasury. There's one outstanding check that Kathleen was tracing down with the Clemens Group, and I think we've got that resolved, and they found the missing check. So do we have a motion then to approve the treasurer's report?
So moved.
Tom, do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All right, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, also just to note that we are still need to get an audit done of our books, so need to work through that. Old business solicitor's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I sent out my solicitor's report earlier this week. We've had two long-standing items and one new, the wireless communications, the billboard use ordinance, and the B17 generator ordinance have all been advertised. I sent out an email to all of our managers and notifying them when the ordinance was to be adopted by each of the respective municipalities. It is all within a 9-day window starting this Monday. You guys meet on Monday, right?
We meet Wednesday.
Wednesday, then starting this Wednesday. And then these three ordinances should be adopted and cleared off the books. Sent to general, well, actually, the opposite of cleared off the books, put on the books for others.
Cleared off the working books.
Right. And also attached was the legal notice for adoption. But nothing further unless there are any questions.
Questions? All right. Planner?
Yes, actually, I'm thinking that tonight is sort of just to get a status update where everyone is. Tuesday night, Dave and I attended the Newtown Township Planning Commission meeting. They had requested our attendance just to go over. They had started to discuss the signs before and had a lot of questions. So we went and Dave really, they wanted to go over the definitions to really understand all the different types of signs and determine which ones they want to regulate, which ones they don't really, wish to have in the township. So we got through half of the definitions. There was a lot of discussion, and we will be going back on June 2nd, I believe, because they would like to sort of finish up going through that. I haven't heard from any of the other townships, so I don't know if the planning commissions have been discussing the signs or have had that opportunity.
So I think Upper Makefield has. I wasn't at the last planning commission meeting. They told me I guess because they were only discussing that item and not any land development applications, they just did it without me. I don't take any offense to that, but I don't know exactly where they are
Right,
in the
okay.
review, but I know they're doing it.
And Wrightstown's been doing it.
Okay.
Is it sort of still like just in the process, like
Well,
ongoing discussion
We took an inventory of all the signs in the township.
of your current existing?
Yeah, just to
Okay.
see, to make sure what needs to be maybe grandfathered in or
Oh,
what.
okay, good.
And also some signs, when you look at the definition, you say, we didn't have that kind of sign, and you do. When you look at the sign, so we took an inventory of all this. And then what we're gonna do is to make it easier, because it's such a huge topic, we're gonna take the easy side first. What signs would we want in the residential area? Because that would be a lot easier than tackling what's in the commercial or the other areas. So we'll say, we should be done it in probably about 2 months, 3 months.
Okay.
Takes a
So,
long time, there's a lot of questions.
it is, and I think, I know that packet of the definitions, it's a lot of definitions, but I think the approach was just sort of put everything in, and then sort of go through it. So if any of the planning commissions have questions, Dave and I are happy to attend a meeting, just so they, sometimes it's hard to understand, and they pointed out some good questions where we thought, maybe we should tweak a definition or two here or there. So to have those discussions is good.
All right, any questions?
Just a real quick way, it came up, I think, there was a discussion of, and I'm learning this stuff, so it's more just informative for me, but the signs are per type of zoning place? In other words, can you attribute, will it be that every type of zoning will have a specific set of signs? Is it, how do the zoning and signs overlap?
So usually what you'll say is there might be a certain type of sign, like let's take the most like egregious example, neon flashing, right? And you'll say, if that were a definition, I don't know if it is, but if that is a type of sign, like neon flashing sign, you might want to say that is only permitted in the commercial 1 zoning district, but not in commercial 2, but maybe it is permitted in another zoning district. So you can assign types of signs to each zoning district.
Okay.
It doesn't mean that they're mutually exclusive. You could have, they call them monument signs. That's one of the most common.
Yeah,
They're going to be allowed many more places probably than just
okay.
the commercial
Right.
1 district.
And what's the potential sort of, conflict between the three, Whitestown? In other words, if we want to say, our signs can only be this big and you guys want to make your signs this big, is that a point of conflict?
If there were overlapping zoning districts, if we shared a zoning district where there was conflict, so that's where you would have to find the conflict, is
Okay.
shared zoning district
Right.
with different ideas of what the regulations should be around a sign in a shared zoning district.
So if we fill out our form, which has, the sizes and about that, but our zoning district don't really overlap with anybody else, and there's going to be no conflict.
Right.
Okay.
I mean, right. Unless there is shared zoning districts, that's where there's a potential for conflict.
Right.
And one possibility is once once all 3 townships come up with a list of signs and whatever, we can actually, we have on the agenda here that we can have like an ordinance review prior to this meeting. So we can kind of, have like a subcommittee that kind of hashes things out between the different townships. Because, yeah, I think we're all gonna come in different places, and, by nature, a sign in Newtown is gonna look different than a sign in Wrightstown or Upper Makefield. And even though you're looking at that same sign, everybody has a different perception. But in the end, I mean, we could land up with the same, with a compromise definition, or, we could have, but could possibly have some overlapping definitions. So so a specific sign would be one size in Newtown and a different size in Wrightstown.
Okay.
Not the most desirable, but it can be done. All right, good. All right, that's good. We still don't have a secretary. Okay, new business. There's, Wrightstown has circulated an ordinance to rezone a small portion of property adjacent to the quarries. The quarry and an adjoining property owner did a land swap. And when they did that land swap and they changed the property lines, what happened was that the new lots that were legal descriptions, we now have a zoning line that goes between each of those two lots. So in order to make it more consistent, we've made some recommendations to change the zoning within those two lots so they're consistent internally for each of those parcels. So it's it only impacts Wrightstown. It's not changing the use on the property. Again, it's just doing a realignment because of the property lines have changed slightly.
And it's all adjacent to the quarry, and the new designation fits with the designation right next to it, so.
Yeah, in one case it's RI going to RIA and RIA to RI, and so it's just some internal things that are peculiar to Wrightstown. And even though one of the parcels is owned by the quarries, it's not. We're not expanding the quarry in any way, so it's not part of that. Not part of that. So these are. It's circulated to the planning commissions for review, and hopefully, we'll be able to get a favorable response back so we can get this taken care of.
Do you need a motion?
I think it's already out. It's already out for review. So unless until it comes back. Well, I mean, we could say.
You could formally move to send it to the respective planning commissions and boards of supervisors. If there's a ratification to take.
Yeah, let's do that. So Tom, are you making that motion?
Yes.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Good. All right, do we want to, as part of this, authorize the advertising if we get a clean bill from each of the three townships? Would that work? Just in case we're coming up to June, July, August. Maybe we'll have meetings, maybe we won't, depending upon what's on our schedule.
I'm fine with it as long as it's
Yes,
procedural.
as long as we get it clean, as long as we're not tweaking it between here and there, that's the.
Yeah, and again, I would be surprised if anybody's gonna say anything about tweaking it, because there's nothing you can tweak.
Right, it's not it's not like you can move from a 10-foot sign to a 12-foot
No,
sign.
it's just what it is. So the motion would be to authorize the circulation and to advertise it for adoption if we get a clean reviews from all three townships. So,
Yes.
So that Tom and Ed are that. So any discussion? All right, here none, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Motion carries. All right, thank you. Data centers.
You want me to take it?
Yeah.
That's fine. So, Newtown solicitor contacted Vicky Kushto and myself to discuss whether the jointure would be, or to sort of prompt the jointure to discuss creating a data center ordinance. I'm sure unless you're hiding somewhere, you know that this is going on in municipalities throughout Pennsylvania right now. There's a lot of data center development. There's a lot of public outcry against data center development. There's state legislation that has been proposed. I don't think anything's moved into adoption yet, but if you were at PSATs, I think there was substantial
Lots of
discussion about data centers. So we have to kick it off somewhere. I circulated 3 draft ordinances. They are the East Rock Hill Data Center Ordinance. That's one of my clients, Dave Sander for Newtown, sent Upper Merion's Data Center Ordinance. And I also supplied the Penn Future model ordinance. Penn Future is basically like a state environmental advocacy group that especially focuses on land use issues. So each of those ordinances have been circulated. I can take a stab at a draft and come back to everybody, but, I think we just need to have this on the agenda and keep chipping away at it because it is a complicated use to regulate in terms of area. I mean, it can have a major impact on utilities. I think my experience so far has been that we prefer to have a data center and we try to drive them towards on-site electrical generation, but off-site water production, basically like connecting to a public water supply rather than draining the aquifer, but then producing their own like renewable electricity on site with either solar or wind. But I've seen, if you've seen at 3 Mile Island, Microsoft is trying to resurrect the nuclear reactor there. So these things eat up a lot of energy. We'd ideally like to keep their impact off of the grid.
Also, there'd be a lot with fire prevention and all,
Yep.
because they have batteries, they have all sorts of stuff.
So Will, to level set this discussion, could you tell us a little bit about what would happen today without us having any ordinance for it? What someone could do
Yeah.
and what they couldn't do?
So, I don't know if we have a audience at home, but, when we adopt a data center ordinance, it's not the jointure or any of the municipalities saying that they are inviting a data center into their municipality. So what would happen today is if somebody wanted to build a data center in any of the 3 jointure municipalities, they would look at the zoning ordinance and they would say, where is this use permitted in these 3 municipalities? The answer would be, we don't have a use expressly for that purpose, but we have this catch-all use that is for any lawful use of land in Pennsylvania that is not otherwise provided in the zoning ordinance. If you've worked with me for any length of time, I've used this example a million times. A few years ago, axe throwing became in vogue, right? And nobody knew what to call it. Was it more like a bowling alley? Was it more like an arcade? And in one municipality, they just said, well, we have this catch-all provision that is just any use that we don't provide for is allowed by conditional use in this zoning district, because new uses pop up and they pop up faster than our zoning ordinance can really adjust to them. So that's why you have that catch-all provision, is so that if somebody comes in with this, I have a brand new use of land, you've never heard of it and you don't have it in your ordinance, we can say, not so fast, you don't get to just put that wherever you want. You get to put it in this catch-all zoning district, which in the jointure is the RI and RIA zoning districts. That catch-all use that we have is not ideal for data centers. I mean, it'll suffice, but what you want to have is an ordinance that is outlining in much greater detail the requirements that we expect a data center developer to meet. This catch-all doesn't have any question about like groundwater withdrawals or preferences to connect to provide on-site electricity versus off. So, you really do want to have an ordinance that's a nice safety net to have, but it's not the gold standard. The gold standard is a standalone ordinance. So, sorry, that turned into a lecture on zoning and.
No, we need to talk about it.
Are there any questions about, again, this is kind of a big, going to be a big ordinance, no matter how we slice it, yeah.
I'm a software developer.
Right.
Right? I love computers. I have 15 old computers stacked up in my room in a rack. They're all on, blinking lights. Am I a data center?
I think we want to, but that's something we want to say is, is it for, how does that get defined? Is it for profit? I don't know if you're doing that for profit, if you're hosting as like a server for other people,
Right.
like an offsite server for other people. then you feel a little bit more data center. And I don't think we want to have, the accessory data center use for the, but,
Right, but, yeah, I mean, if 15, boxes in a rack isn't that big, and there
Right.
could be legitimate reasons for companies to need that. I mean, our police station has,
more
several
than that.
servers in it, is our police station a data center?
right.
Not that I want them, I'm just trying to say.
But look, I welcome
Yeah.
all of these thoughts because I don't want to sweep up, these legitimate land uses that just have a server or two in their,
Right.
on their premises to
Right.
be accidentally.
Well, even, larger companies could have a computer room with multiple servers, okay? Because, so it wouldn't be unusual for somebody to have 20 or 50 servers, in a room on a company property, which are used internally for, that business. I don't think that is what we would consider, or that I would consider a data center.
And that's not their chief use either. I mean, it's for
Correct.
the use of the company.
Yeah, it supports, you have, your rack of computers supports what you do as opposed to,
Yeah, but if I'm offering a service to people, in other words, I work in the insurance industry, and one of the services we provide is you can come to our servers and get information about your claims and things like that. So there are folks who are reaching out from across the world to get information from our servers,
Right, and I think it's a question of scale in one sense.
Okay.
Right, I mean,
Yeah.
that's part of it, is if we're, because that same activity, if you multiply it by probably like 1 million,
Right.
that would probably be a data center, right? I mean, it's the same activity, just at a much smaller
Yeah.
scale.
I think this is a really good question, right? It needs to be defined because it's not, I don't want to say you're not concerned about the large data center because we are, obviously, but that's really hard to put in our jointure almost anywhere physically. But smaller ones, you certainly could put them, in virtually anywhere, and it has to be defined. What is a data center? What is small? What is large? What is
Yeah.
whatever?
well, I could almost say a data center as small as a single trailer or double wide trailer, which, and I've seen a lot of examples of that in the literature. So, I mean, those, they fit on a quarter acre lot, half acre lot, quite easily.
I don't know what the impacts are of that, so to your point, I don't, is that, all these horror stories are about data centers, do they apply to that size or not? And I have no idea.
Well, I guess if it's a small enough, I mean, the question is if it's a small enough unit and it can go on any lot in the jointure, then, potentially you're gonna be pulling power from the grid as opposed to generating yourself. So, I mean, if you put a data center on a 5 acre, 10 acre parcel, then you could write regulations about generating your own power and make that work a little bit better.
I guess another question would be then is, in software, it's always cheaper to buy than build. Can we go buy the definition? Like, has someone created a definition that we can just use?
Yeah, I mean, so all the ordinances will have some definition of
Okay.
what the data center is, and the data center accessory
Right.
facilities, I'll call them, because you'll have things like, I don't know, maybe battery backup units, you'll have hopefully on-site energy generation of some sort, other than, I don't think anybody wants nuclear reactors around here, but maybe they do. But yeah, each of these ordinances have definitions. I haven't actually heard that question posed in that way, is to say, look, if you're gonna call that a data center, is it just a matter of scale? Is that what differentiates a data center from a
Company.
a computer? Almost is, right, is that we all have, but.
So I had to think about it, but I don't know how many servers it takes to create a obscene power draw or a loud noise or whatever. I mean, it might be a big number, I don't know, but that's, because I think that's what we're really trying to control, right, is we're trying to control those nuisances. And you don't wanna have somebody living next door to a guy like Ed who's making noise and drawing the power and all that, but I mean, I don't know if that's a big deal or not, you know?
I mean, even being in a server room like at my firm, which is just one server, it's warm in there, right? I mean, it's not a big room, but doesn't take a lot of computer power, I guess, to generate heat and all the things that we are hearing about on the large scale. So, I don't know, but you're gonna keep me up tonight when I'm thinking about it.
Go ahead.
The on-site power generation, so I was listening to a podcast, and they were talking about Colossus and Colossus 2, which are the Grok, Elon Musk AI data centers. And the first one, Colossus, was retrofit into a giant old steel mill factory, something I think right on the border of Tennessee and Mississippi, I think they touch. And it was right on the border, and they said we're gonna have some big source of power come in, they're gonna run heavy duty wires, big towers, but he needed to go faster, so he brought in all of these semi-sized diesel generators, or natural gas, some kind of generator, and he put like 50 of them around the outside, and they're just running 24/7, and that was like 2 years ago. And they never got the power in, he's just running these generators 24/7. And then they opened, and so Tennessee basically said, no, you can't do this anymore. And so he moved across the border into Mississippi, I think, and then put like 100 generators around an even bigger building. So Colossus 2. So when you say on-site power generation, what the neighbors are complaining about is this constant, you hear it, it's like a turbine,
Right.
but 100 of them all, and you can hear it miles and miles away. To your point about, is it a bunch of computers, or is it the nuisance that is then thrust upon you by a large number of computers? Sound, water, noise, pollution.
Yeah, I think you probably don't want that on-site generation to be fossil fuel driven.
Yeah.
I think because with fossil fuels comes combustion, and I think combustion is where you get noise probably. I mean, this is just me playing planner actually more than anything, is I'm thinking you want to force towards like clean energy,
Right, but the
renewable,
sun doesn't
quiet.
always shine, it could be nighttime and
Sure.
your juice goes out, and now you gotta run this thing. You know, you can guarantee that the gas is gonna burn.
Right.
You know, and I guess the question I would have is, again, being new to this, can we put that kind of restriction where you can't have something like that, so you can use solar and wind, but then that just now deters people from coming here, or can they fight us on that and say, that's not rational, I wanna put it here, but I need to be able to use these things?
So
I could put batteries.
So the other issue is that all the power companies are building capacity. So for these things, including within Pennsylvania, so I don't know if you'll have the ability to do those, to make those restrictions and say it has to be. I can't imagine we'd be able to get away with saying you have to have a solar powered data center, but
Well, it's backup or main source, right?
Right, I think my advice would be to write it as strict as you care to write it. And if we have to back off of a provision because it's just not rational or it's not possible, you know, I've said this example a few times too, is like if you said you're allowed to have basketball courts in our township, but they can't be taller than 8 feet. Well, you've effectively prohibited a basketball court, right? That's not what you want to do. But nor do I want to just ignore these regulations entirely. Like, let's get the ordinance we want. And if we have to abandon one specific criteria, like, you know, demanding that everything be solar, we can do that. It's easier to come off of a requirement than it is to superimpose one after the fact. So I would say write it as you want it and worry about a challenge to the ordinance later.
I know that we're gonna talk about this more for probably a while, but I wanted to piggyback off of something that Ed had said. There was a lot of discussion at PSAT surrounding the utility lines coming into the data centers and them just going through neighborhoods and the townships not having really any say or any foot to stand on.
that's why I mentioned the power companies.
Yeah, so if that's something we can look into incorporating, I don't know, I also don't know.
Right.
where we can go, but that's something that a lot of people were pretty upset about.
At least in Wrightstown and in Newtown, we have the power lines that go right through the township. All right, so if you sited your data centers close to those power lines, then you've got probably ready access to power, so that you wouldn't have to go through, neighborhoods and so forth. Probably no power lines in Upper Mayfield.
So, but I don't know what the complexity is, right? So what I was referring to was more along the lines of what Elizabeth was asking about, but, so I've read some articles where Western Pennsylvania are putting applications into the PUC to draw heavy power, and they're cutting it through the forest and this and that, and it's all going through this process. So I don't know how the Pennsylvania state utility laws affect this. And, you certainly don't want a scenario like the example Elizabeth was making, but I also don't know what kind of controls we have or don't have. And you want the ordinance to be strong because we don't want this in the wrong place, obviously.
We had the same issue with the wireless.
Right.
They control, the utilities control.
Correct. You're absolutely right. That's a good example. That was the same issue.
So utilities, any utility that's regulated by the Public Utility Commission, they have the right to use the right of way. So they're allowed to use the roads, they're allowed to use a certain distance off the center of the cartway. I think the bigger concern would be a private property owner granting an easement and running high-tension power lines right down the middle. And that's something that's not necessarily easy to stop unless they're violating some other term of the ordinance, like, too much woodlands clearing or something like that, something sort of tangential to the actual electricity transmission. So that's the danger point that I would be concerned about. It's not as much, because I don't think they're gonna put high tension over a road, right? There's just too much conflict there. But over private property, maybe. But these are all fair concerns, this is why we're doing this.
Yeah, I wouldn't take anything off the table. The data center discussion is literally moving mountains. I mean, it's driving markets. It's
They have a lot of money.
a tremendous amount of money, right?
From a process perspective, so if we work backwards, at some point we will have a very strong ordinance that we feel defines what can be built regarding what we will eventually define as data centers, and that will help control and manage what can be built, where it can be built, and the impacts on residents and the environment, with the building of that. And that's kind of, so once, at some point, to your point, it's now on the books forever. As they work our way back, it's gonna follow the same process everything else does here, where, at some point, all the municipalities will approve the final amendments that will then get rid of the jointure and the ordinances, things like that. And then to get there, we all have to kind of go to our own little corners and agree on what that ordinance is gonna look like.
Correct.
And so the ordinance is sort of the thing that we need to produce.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep, that's exactly it.
And that ordinance needs to address certain significant topics like what is a data center, what are the aspects of it that we want to try and control and limit because we feel they'd be negative impacts on our communities.
Correct. Okay. That's exactly it, right.
And do we need to at some point have a group discussion about what those things are? Is that coming?
Yeah, so what I think is going to be the logical next step is that I'm going to have to put a draft together, and it's gonna have to be circulated among the municipalities, and we'll talk more about, there's another step. We'll talk about, we're gonna have an executive session after this meeting quickly. I won't keep you guys all night, but there's another possible step that I wanna discuss. But I'll put a draft together, and then it'll be, everybody put in your 2 cents. I'm no data center expert, I'm not claiming to be. You brought up something, Ed, that I hadn't considered, and so I want feedback, I want critiques, because that makes it a better ordinance.
Just want to add something. The county, the planning commission has a webpage on their BCPC Connects. So we have been reviewing proposals from municipalities throughout the county for data centers. So anything that we review, I believe is on there, but also, no, anything that's adopted is on there. Although what we review is public information anyway, but it's not on that page. And I just actually reviewed one for Hilltown. It wasn't as detailed as one of the ones that you sent. I think it might have been the Penn Futures one, the one that really went into a lot of scientific stuff. But in researching for that, I found that Montgomery County and Chester County recently, just in April, put together a guide. So that might be something, and I can send a link out just for information of what to think of when you think of what the things you need to regulate for this use are. So just as
I think
information.
that's a good idea.
Yeah,
Send it out.
so if you want, I can just send it to you guys and to everybody, just sort of a background.
So before we circulate it to the townships, we're gonna bring the draft back here, we're gonna have discussions here, correct?
That's fine with me, we can do it for next month. Yeah.
So I'd rather us see it before us see it, talk about it, and
Right, that's fine, we'll do it, so I'll bring a draft next month and we'll, get it rolling.
Questions?
I have a question for Lisa. Where on the website are the,
I have to find it, the BC, I think if you go to the Planning Commission page, we have a page, and then there should be something BCPC Connects. So all of the projects that we're working on.
Send us a link.
I'll send you the link, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not the technology person, I
Oh,
try.
we'll get somebody, get one of
If
your,
I sit down on the
get one of your
computer and
peeps
think
to
I'm
do
gonna
it,
know,
huh?
right?
all right, sounds good. All right, I also had Public Information Open Records Coordinator to kind of talk through, because I'm on a couple other public entities, and we have public information folks, because we hold public meetings. And when we did reorganization, we did not assign a public information person. I don't know that we need to do one.
But you're supposed to, every agency's supposed to have a right to know officer, an open records officer. I don't know that we've ever had this issue. Have we ever gotten a jointure right to know request?
Nope.
Yes,
Okay.
I sent you one today.
today.
Just now you need an open records.
So now you.
Where'd you send it to?
You,
Oh, okay.
Now you-
I haven't
I
seen
got
it.
one too.
you got it from me?
Yes,
Oh, did I send it to everybody?
maybe you sent it to me instead of Chester.
You see that? See that? Yeah. But again, the reason I bring it up is that while from a public information, everything that we have is on our website, all right? So I don't, we don't have any hidden documents. So that's, all the minutes are public, all the financials are public, all the ordinances are public. So again, if you were to ask for, somebody would ask for a memo that was written 3 years ago, I probably wouldn't be able to find it,
Right,
because we don't have that electronically.
right. So, I mean, you want an open records officer because if there's a request made and it's, for example, solicitor's report, doesn't necessarily get made public, but you need somebody to turn around and respond to that request and say.
It's attached to the minutes.
But if let's say I wrote you a memo on something that I don't want to be shared to the public, and somebody says, I'd like a copy of the solicitor's memo, somebody has to say no. And that person is the Office of Open it's the Open Records Officer, to invoke that privilege on behalf of the jointure. So it's helpful to have one. If we've gotten one request in, the history of time, then it shouldn't be a real labor-intensive position, but
But I'm worried John's gonna send one now every week, so, that's.
Could happen.
good. But if all of the documents are available online, it will make them really easy to assemble when you do get So, this won't be a very labor-intensive position, I don't
Can
think.
we, if it's online, can we point people to the, say that it's available online?
Yeah, you're supposed to provide the records, but you can tell them it's there too. So that's basic, but I would recommend we have an open records officer. I mean, you can name the solicitor as the open records officer. You could name any member of the board as an open records officer, and you can just say
Or one of the managers.
one of the managers is the open records officer. You can rotate it that way. I mean,
So seeing the solicitor tracks the, seeing the solicitor tracks the municipality and rotates, maybe would Upper Makefield's manager be willing to act in that position?
Well, we can't speak for him, but.
But we could still appoint him.
We certainly could. I don't have a problem doing that. So I like the idea of, if the solicitor is rotating, the townships usually have the manager serve as the open records officer,
So it would rotate too, every 2 years.
rotate the open records officer with the solicitor.
Yeah,
and that makes sense because they will often need to coordinate with the solicitor.
Correct.
And if I already have a line with Greg, so, and I'm sure, whenever it rotates, it's easier than establishing, a solicitor with a different township's manager for the sake of 2 years of open records requests. So,
so I'm gonna make a motion that we appoint Greg as the open record officer for the next 2 years. Actually, it may be more
Year
broad.
and 7 months.
Can I recommend a change to that motion and not say recommending Greg, but that we
The upper make, yeah,
procedurally request or
the manager,
require the manager of the township that has got the solicitor rotation?
yeah, that makes sense because the auditors also rotate in that same fashion, so we would have everything, so I'll make that motion.
I'll
You
second.
Any discussion?
So it applies, I follow it, it applies across the board. So what Greg will hear is the process that's in place. It just so happens that you're gonna be the first one up because you're sitting.
right.
Shouldn't be a problem because there's virtually no activity, but
Well-
it would fit.
Okay.
But it would, as your would fit because Greg would go to Will and
And you'll pull it off the website
Right.
if the person doesn't have a computer to get to the
if you
website.
had different people, different managers and different solicitors, it would get confusing.
I don't have Micah's number on speed dial. Greg I call all the time, right? It's easier for me to work with Greg, who I talk to quite often. So
Greg
that
would want
makes
to
sense.
talk to the solicitor or the jointure who would be.
Right,
the
his
same ones.
solicitor too.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect solution.
All right. So I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. I thank Greg and Upper Makefield for going this cycle.
Voluntold for this position,
Well, you know what, if this would have come up last year,
It would have been.
would have raced out, so. All right. So that's done. All right, privilege of the floor from the board. Anything that you guys want to talk about that's not on the agenda? All right, public comment, anyone? Let us know who you are and where you live.
My name is John Mack, I live in Newtown, PA, Newtown Township. Regarding the right-to-know officer, you're gonna have one, you gotta advertise it with the link for email, so I can send open requests to the right person. You need to have the right-to-know request form and information like that. And what I'm interested in is, we have this agenda. And what I was interested in was the 3 ordinances, data center ordinances that were distributed, and it says attached. Now, I'm assuming I can get those. I mean, I probably have them anyway right now. Since you mentioned them, I know what they are. But it would have been great if that word attached
Well,
So
that attaches for the
But
board.
I'm saying that to bypass the right to know process, if you're going to make documents available, if you want to put a link next to something in the agenda so people can actually download it without going through that whole process. Some municipalities already do this, such as Newtown Borough, when they have a council meeting and they're discussing a document that the public wants to make comments on. It's right in the agenda, which appears several days before the meeting, so that the public can get study this before they come to a meeting, make a public comment, or to ask questions. That's just my suggestion. The right to know officer needs also to keep a record of all the right to know requests. And you have to know what the law is in terms of how long it takes to respond to a right to know, and what reasons that you might have for not granting the request. All that has to be kept reported. And that's what, as far as I know, the right to know law. So I think it's important. The data centers, I had a question on. I don't know if you want to answer. I know in Newtown Township, they don't answer questions, but for example, I know Newtown is adjacent on Lower Lakefield, huge farm land. Can that farmland be sold to a data center operator, for example? I know that one of the East Rock Hill data center says you need 50 acres minimum, all right, to set up a data center. The only one I can think of, the only place where you can get 50 acres, as far as I know, is probably a farm. And there are farms very close to where I live, up in Lower Makefield, I believe it is. So I was just curious as to whether farmland can be sold privately to somebody who wants to set up a data center. Now, of course, if you don't have a use for data centers, they'll maybe sue us, sue the township who doesn't have that use. And so I don't know what Lower Makefield is doing with regard to that. They're not part of this jointure, so.
John, I think the Patterson farm is preserved in Lower Makefield. I think the Patterson farm is preserved.
Preserve? Well, that's what this farm said. What's the one on the bypass where they're building luxury homes?
That's the right farm, I think it is, yeah.
They always said, well, we're not gonna ever sell it, and I guess,
But it wasn't preserved, so.
okay.
Are you talking about the farm next, along Lindenhurst?
Linden,
That one, that's also, isn't that part of the right
Oh,
farm
that's
too?
the right farm, yeah, but the
Yeah,
other
they-
one
they
that's
do have a
further
preserved-
down is the one that they sold for.
Right,
One
on
with
both
Wegmans,
sides
the
of
one
two
with Wegmans
ninety-five.
is-
But that is preserved, I don't know if it's preserved under the, county program, the one the
Oh, you
one at
mean-
Lindenhurst.
You mean
and-
Ruth's, yeah. Can't remember how that was preserved.
I think it might be through the county.
Yeah, I think it might be, yeah.
Well, the farm that's preserved is now an arts center, isn't
Yeah,
it?
that's the Patterson farm.
So that's Patterson, and that is preserved. I remember that that's preserved.
So I think the answer is if the property is preserved, no. If the property is not preserved, it's they can sell to a data center, they can sell to a developer. And it's a free, open market.
So if the farm is zoned residential, they can't build a data center, is that correct?
So our argument, the response would be, it would go to the fallback position, the fallback, catch-all ordinance that we have, which is RI and RIA only. So if you were in CM or somewhere like that, and you had a 50-acre farm that you wanted to buy, we would say, tough luck,
So,
You know,
so,
Elon, you're not in RI or RIA.
so speaking, can't speak for Lower Makefield, but speaking for Newtown, Township, Upper Makefield, and Wrightstown, if you wanted to do a data center, it could only go in an industrial site, which is only one of two locations in the jointure.
RI and RIA. Well, two zoning districts, not, I mean, when you say two locations, that's not quite
Do we know how many,
precise.
do we know all those locations that are?
They're on the zoning map. I mean, you could break them out by parcel size.
And there's not many of those.
They surround the quarry and quarry operations, I guess I would say.
Basically, everything across the street here, down Pence Park Road where the self-storage facilities are. Also, across from that Cagney Schoolhouse, that parcel, that's part of that, so.
The part that isn't quarry is usually RI.
Got it. So to John's concern about if there is a farm, that doesn't mean that there's any chance that that can become a data center.
No more than it becoming a Wawa.
Got it.
Right.
The other suggestion maybe is, when I was a supervisor, we were discussing the wireless ordinance. That was pretty complicated, and I believe there was an expert who helped write that. I don't know if there's an expert on data centers, but it seems to be the discussion here, nobody here is an expert. And I know Penn Future was mentioned. They probably might be good candidates to at least review, any draft ordinance that you might have, especially with regard to the environment, I suppose. So that's just a suggestion that I had.
But I think, did you say one of the examples that you sent is your model, right?
Yep, that's correct.
Okay. And I guess logistically, we're gonna have to work, getting back to John's comments about access for public information. We're gonna have to, I guess we're gonna have to put a link on each of the township websites pointing to, and the email will go to the manager of choice for the next 2 years. So we'll have to create a link in each of the 3 townships that point to Upper Mayfield's manager.
Yep.
And then we could probably put a link also for the open records on the on E-code, because that's the only website that we have available to us right now. Okay. All right, anything, any other public comment? All right, so we are going to adjourn the meeting, and we're going to go into executive session to discuss potential litigation issues.
You can receive advice from counsel is always a reason
Okay,
for
so
a
that's
executive session.
what we're going to be doing. We're not making any decision afterwards, so we will not be reconvening to make any final decisions. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Tom and I, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Have a great evening, everyone. All right.